The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Well, God, we want to thank you for your church in all of its manifestations and expressions around the world. We thank you that your answer to our need as human beings was to raise up the church and to breathe your life into it and to give it that amazing responsibility of being your presence here in this world. We thank you for those who sojourned into this part of Appalachia decades and decades and centuries ago. Those who were moved by the circuit riding preachers who heard your call and who became voices on this and in this wilderness to announce the good news of Jesus Christ. We thank you for those who through the years continued to share that good news, whether down by the river or here in town as the modern city of Kingsport was being established. So we recognize, oh God, that we have a past, but we also recognize that we have a future. And we ask for your grace this night to listen to your Spirit as we continue to discern your future for us. In your holy name we pray. Amen. So friends, last week, as I recall, my lovely wife, as she was finishing her time up here, announced that there would be a State of the Church report next week that would be given or led by me, and she promised you a song and dance routine. She really went out on a limb on that one. I don't dance, okay? I am not a good dancer. Learned to waltz for My Fair Lady years ago, and like biblical languages, that too is lost to history. I like to sing. You know I like to sing, but tonight's not the place for that. So I thank my wife for setting me up for that. So, by my count, friends, tonight is the fifth State of the Church report over the last 2 years. We began to offer this time as a communication tool for our congregation. And so, I think 4 out of the 5 times we've printed a handout. And tonight, I just want to call your attention to the picture that is on the front of the handout. Because it says that we're about reviewing the past and looking to the future. And if you notice the pictures there, even if you could enlarge them, you might not recognize many people there. The pictures are taken from the 4th of July, where we are co-sponsors with Fleet Feet of the Red, White, and Boom race. And we engage in that each year because it is an opportunity for us to reach beyond our walls, and it started right outside of our walls. And there were 325 folks who came to this campus to register and to start that race. And that's one thing. But after the race was over, this congregation on the 4th of July, on a holiday, came together and provided breakfast for 225 of those racers in here, okay? And that's a good thing because it recognizes that not everybody that we are trying to reach are already here, that they're still out there. And we hear that verse from Hebrews that says, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight. And there are some weights that hold us back. They hold us back individually sometimes. They hold us back as families. They hold us back as churches. And let us run with endurance. So that means not giving up. It means pacing yourself. The race that is set before us. So I think it's always appropriate for us to begin with our mission. So as a church, a community of faith, we do not exist for ourselves. And I trust that you know that we do not exist for ourselves. It's great for us to have pride in our church and to say, my church is First Broad Street. But I hope that anytime we are saying, my church, that we are willing to recognize that there's a lot of people out there for whom it can become their church. And that can be risky business, particularly if there were to be a lot of them who want to be a part of our church. And so the church then has a mission. It exists for those who aren't even here yet. As followers of Jesus Christ, we're told to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of this world. And I use that phrase because it's both scriptural and it's the mission of the United Methodist Church. And when you get right down to it, simply put, we are about making disciples. And I think making disciples can even be more simple. It means that we help people follow Jesus. And I like that phrase. We help people follow Jesus. I was referencing today something I'd heard Clark said, and someone referred to it as a Clarkism. And I understand Clark had lots of Clarkisms that he shared. And one of his was that we are the church in the heart of the city with the city at heart. And that's a really meaningful statement. Hey, I wasn't here, but I've got the t-shirt, okay? And I bet some of you all have got the t-shirt. The church at the heart of the city with the city at heart. But what extends beyond the t-shirt? You see, I think this is an amazing congregation. So some people have asked me along the way, if you can describe First Broad Street in one word, what's your word? Without reservation, my word is amazing. It is an amazing congregation. And I believe that we have the opportunity to use some amazing resources as we claim our role of helping people follow Jesus. So it doesn't quite sound as good as a Clarkism, so my Mickeyism, okay, is we help people follow Jesus. Can you say that? We help people follow Jesus. We strive to help those follow Jesus who have been here for decades. We help people who have just been here a short time, who are new to First Broad Street. We help them follow Jesus. And our goal must be a highly motivated one that sends us forth from here to meet those folk who have not yet come and help them to follow Jesus. And the way that we do that is through a strategy that we presented 2 years ago. It's been just a little over 2 years ago, and you know that strategy. I am confident that more people know that strategy than ever knew the prior mission statement. Do you know it? Our strategy is loving God, growing together, and reaching out. So if you go to our church website, on the homepage, you will find the statement. At First Broad Street, we are serious about living as disciples of Jesus Christ by loving God through vibrant worship, growing together through building relationships in Bible studies and small group experiences, and reaching out in service and mission to those in the greater Kingsport community, in our nation, and throughout the world. And so I would ask you, do you see how this describes a really clear and compelling mission of helping people follow Jesus. I'm excited about inviting new people to come and to experience Jesus through the amazing resources that we've been given here at First Broad Street. My question is, are you excited about inviting people to experience this amazing place? Because you have far more opportunities to invite people to First Broad Street than your staff do. And one of the reasons that I know that is I know that secretly you expect our staff to keep office hours regardless of what we do. And if we're keeping office hours, we're not out there inviting people, okay? So I encourage you to claim that role that you expect us to have as well of inviting. Now, I know that we've had our share of challenges, but many of our challenges have come because we were willing to take some risk, to risk not doing things the way that we've always done them in the past in order to seek greater fruitfulness. I've been willing to take those risks on my behalf because I believe that the kingdom of God is risky business. I believe that the kingdom of God is dynamic and not static. We've had a number of wins in recent months. I ask around, what are the wins that you have experienced here in recent months? And so there's a number of those. I would call your attention, first of all, to the fact that in April, we shared this piece with you. It's called A Recent History. And my guess is you've had your hands on at least one copy of this. If you haven't had your hands on a copy of it, or if you didn't see it on the website or through an email, then there are stacks of them on either side of the platform here. And I want to encourage you to pick one of those up because up through April, it describes some of the wins that we have experienced. The groundwork around those wins actually began in April 2012. So I just want you to hear that. The groundwork began in April of 2012, and it extended through the work done by a number of task forces that worked throughout the summer of May to August 2012. And I would say to you that after 2 years of prayer, of discernment, of some intentional decision making, we are beginning to see the fruit of work that was done 2 years ago. And the work was summarized in this recent history piece, but there's a number of things that have happened since then. So here's some of the things that you've told me that you consider to be wins for the 2014 year. One of the most recent ones is that we brought on board 2 associate pastors. They are focusing on areas that are critical to the vision of First Broad Street: young adults and small groups. We also brought on board a new youth director. And with that, last week we restarted our Wednesday night student ministry for junior highs and senior highs. I wish all of you could have experienced what I experienced when I went upstairs for those few minutes while the puppet show was going on down here. It was to see more than 50 highly energized young men and women and 12 plus adult volunteers that were so full of excitement because God was already doing more than they expected. I wish that you could have had the conversations out in the parking lot that I had with junior high and senior high youth who told me what an awesome time that they had, and they could hardly wait for this week to come back around. One of our wins is a new contemporary worship director. We're having a good time with Lucas. Most of you know that Lucas has become engaged since he came here. And so we ask him each week if he is still engaged. It was Lucas's 6th Sunday here. And one of my practices on Sunday morning is to move through both worship spaces. It's to greet those who are here, and it's to pray over the space. But on that 6th Sunday, I was standing back here at the back, and I was looking and I was listening with amazement. I was amazed at how few musicians and singers that Lucas had to work with his first Sunday, and how God has enabled him to build a great team in a really short period of time. Contemporary worship has recently made up 40 to 45% of our total worship attendance. And I'm excited by that. Someone asked how I was feeling about that. I am excited by that. How can I not be excited? We're averaging more than 300 in those 2 services each week. And one Sunday, just a couple of weeks ago, it was on Sunday, August the 3rd. It wasn't even high attendance Sunday. We had 255 people in the 10:45 contemporary worship time, and we didn't even have enough seats for all of them. God's doing an amazing thing. Now, if it's not enough that we've hired 4 new staff people, I would say to you that the synergy among these 4 new staff people is the one thing we never expected that we were getting. They work well with one another. They seek out one another. They are experiencing the kind of excitement from the sum of their parts that is greater than the sum of their individual efforts. So I want to say thank you for everyone who is speaking blessing over those 4 new staff people and who are speaking encouraging and building them up every chance you get. So there's a win that's wrapped up in some new staff. And one of the things that has been happening as of late is our recognition that we need to develop a communications task force. That task force is working on how we get the word out, not only to our congregation, but beyond the walls. We have upgraded our website. We have increased our social media presence, and we recognize that if we're interested not only in keeping, but we're also interested in reaching, then we have to identify those ways that we can reach those people who haven't come here yet. One of the recommendations that came out of that task force 2 years ago was that we would be more regular in having testimonies during our worship services. And I know that we had a fluke 2 weeks ago at the 10:45 service. It was the only 10:45 traditional was the only place that it didn't work. But haven't we been blessed by the sharing of our brothers and sisters who have been willing to be vulnerable about their journeys and their experiences in worship over these last 2 Sundays? And if you have in some way been touched these last 2 Sundays, this Sunday, if God doesn't touch you, then your wood's wet, okay? If your fire doesn't burn after this coming Sunday, then I would just say that your wood is wet. And we anticipate doing this more in the future. This last Sunday afternoon, there were young adults who gathered out at Wimberley Woods for fellowship and for a meal together. Over 50 of our young adults and their families gathered there. This summer, we've had 2 international mission trips, one to Estonia and one to Costa Rica, and we have been blessed by the reports that they have brought back, as we have by the Saltville groups and by the Johns Island groups. We recognize that many of the things that we have been able to pay better attention to has been due to the role of the executive director. And we are grateful for Jay's efforts in all that he has sought to help us do to align our mission with the practical work of what we do here at First Broad Street. And then the other thing that I would offer to you is we're learning how to function differently as staff. We're learning how to develop covenants with one another that hold each other accountable. We're learning how to work better as teams and to be intentional with a team structure. So everything about this that I've got to report to you tonight, it has to do with our seeking to be intentional, and that some of that intentionality began more than 2 years ago now. So some of you might be able to offer other wins that you've experienced this year, and I hope that you'll share those wins with us. But we have been blessed. There's no denying it. And I hope that you feel blessed. And not only that you feel blessed, but that you will seek to speak blessing about your church, about other people's opportunity for this to be their church here at First Broad Street. So we couldn't do what we're doing now were it not for some of the staff that God has brought to us. And I am completely confident that in each of these cases, God has brought them here. It wasn't because it was posted on our website. It wasn't because it was in the newspaper. But God has brought these folks to us. We have 2 new building staff people since we met in January. Walter Lawson and Chuck Williams. They're both here tonight. Would you stand? We have a contemporary soundboard operator. Boy, did this one take a long time to pray over, to get. And we're praying over traditional worship too. But Wes Franklin, we welcome you, Wes. Our next 3 people aren't here, but do we have pictures of them somewhere in the system? Do we? All right. So our next one is John Rowe, who's our youth director, and as I told you, John is upstairs. I'm still used to looking back there to see if it's the back there. So John is our new youth director, and that smile is indicative of what our youth and our volunteers are experiencing. Does anybody know what John's one word is? Relationships. Okay, and so that smile is indicative of relationships for him. Our director of contemporary worship and worship presentation is Lucas Higgins, and there is Lucas, all right? Great picture of Lucas. We tried to get him to let us put his high school picture up there, and his high school is all of these, I'll say it because my wife would say it this way, these beautiful golden blonde locks of hair that are shoulder length, okay? All right, and so he's cleaned up real good. He can grow it again. We'll see if his future wife has influence over him when she arrives and it grows back. Our associate pastor, Harrison Bell, is at Asbury this week. He had a course that he needed to work on, and so we recognize Harrison as well. Amanda Dean, I want Amanda to speak for herself tonight, and so if she would come up, please.
Thank you. You're a little bit taller than me, not much, right? Well, what a joy it has been for me to be a part of this worshiping community over these last 6 or 7 weeks now, I think it is. And I want to say thank you first. Thank you so much for being obedient to the Spirit's call to bring Harrison and myself here. I know that he sends his greetings from Asbury, and we are so very blessed to have each other, to have this amazing staff to journey with here while we're at First Broad Street. I just wanted to share briefly, Harrison and I have been going around to some Sunday school classes. If we've been to your Sunday school class, will you raise your hand? Yes, so if we haven't been to your class yet, know that we are making a way. We are going to be there in the next few months. We'd love to talk to you more about who we are and what we're doing here. But I just wanted to give you a brief summary of what we are doing here as associate pastors. So to begin, I'll just share a little bit about what Harrison is all about here. He is our associate pastor of the Spark, which is a service that is of faith right now. We haven't started an additional service off campus, off site, and yet we have put someone in place to be the pastor of that church service that is coming. And in the meantime, Harrison has been very active in both traditional and the contemporary worship services and is very excited about forming a team and being prayerful about what God is calling us to do through the Spark service. He's also facilitating the connecting team, so we're kind of moving to a different model for ministries in which we have teams of people. This connecting team, their mission is to connect individuals for spiritual formation through small groups and through young adult ministry, connecting adults in Sunday school, through really helping and shaping all of us as adults in ministry. This team includes John Wilson, Forever Young Ministries. It includes Margaret Deans, our adult discipleship director, also Nancy Tate, Connectional Ministry, and they're really working to connect people to spiritual growth here at First Broad Street. He's also been working a lot with Nancy to talk about how we can create an atmosphere of hospitality even greater than we've ever experienced here before. And so they're doing great things in that area, and I know that Harrison is really, really excited about his role here. For me, I'm here as the associate pastor of contemporary worship, and so my primary preaching role is in contemporary worship. I'll be going back to traditional occasionally and preaching. In addition to that, I'm focusing on young adult ministry. Many of you know I came out of working in a very vibrant young adult ministry for the past 4 years, and I'm very excited about using the gifts that God has graced me with to help reach out to young adults. And as Mickey mentioned, we had over 50 young adults at the picnic Sunday night. And in addition to that, we've had 20 at the college send-off just a few weeks ago. These are our students from our youth group going off to college. That's really exciting. And this past Sunday in contemporary worship, we had 3 young adults that joined our congregation as members of First Broad Street. Really exciting things are happening there. In addition to that, as Harrison does the connecting team, I'm facilitating our family and parenting team, which includes Ray Johnson, Director of Preschool Ministries, Katie Blaylock, Director of Children's Ministries, and John Rowe, Director of our Student Ministries here. We're meeting together regularly to talk about how God is leading us to shape and form parents and children, to really help families put God first in their lives. And as Mickey mentioned, over 50 last week at AMP, and I'm hoping to get some updated information about how it goes tonight, but they were very, very excited when I was up there a little bit earlier. Our children are kicking off Art and Soul tonight, but we're also really excited about a program. It's called the Orange Curriculum. You may or may not have heard of it, but it is really going to shape our children and students' ministry for the better. It's really exciting things going on there. So just wanted you to know that I'm so blessed to be here, so thankful for your support and your care, for the wonderful words of encouragement that you have showered upon us. And I feel very privileged to work with such an amazing staff. And Mickey and Harrison and I, we pulled apart last week to really pray and work through what God is calling us to preach about. And what an amazing senior pastor I have to study with and to work with and to learn from, and amazing colleagues in ministry. So thank you again so much for bringing us here, and excited to see how God works in the coming months and years together.
Thank you, Amanda. We indeed are blessed. And so these are not the only staff that are here tonight. I would like to ask the rest of our staff that are here tonight, would you stand and let us recognize you as well? So there's several over here. Would you please stand, okay, and spread out? So we have an amazing staff. We are really, really blessed. And so thank you. One of the pieces that we wanted to give you an update on now is Foundations for the Future. Mike McIntyre.
So we put Well, thank you. It's good to be here tonight. Did y'all notice just how really nice Mickey looks today? Last time I saw him this morning, he was on stage with Governor Haslam, Lieutenant Governor Ramsey, the Chief Justice of the Tennessee Supreme Court, Lee, two other justices of the Supreme Court, and about 5 criminal appeals court judges. I just hope he wasn't contaminated too bad. But it was interesting. He was the only person that was speaking that got to speak twice, the invocation and the benediction. But it was for our own Rob Montgomery's investiture for Tennessee State criminal judge. And so we're proud of Rob and proud of Mickey because his prayers were absolutely amazing. So thank you, Mickey. I went to the trouble of preparing a PowerPoint presentation. It shows you that I'm getting old because when I brought my PowerPoint presentation, we don't have PowerPoint on the computer anymore. And I said, what am I going to do? But anyway, I will talk. I'm going to have a lot of numbers, and I'm sorry they're not up on the screen. But anyway, I do want to bring you up to date with what we've accomplished in the last 15 months. It was in May of last year that we finished our campaign and got started on things. So our campaign goal, as you may remember, was $1,700,000. We were about $400,000 short in pledges. We were just under $1.3 million. But the interesting thing, as you're always very faithful, is that we've received about $1.1 million of pledges. That's about 86% already, so thank you for that. We have spent so far $476,000, and we have cash on hand of about $624,000. So we've got a couple of things to do. Some of the things, just to run quickly through, that we've accomplished. We completed the renovation of the 2 restrooms underneath the sanctuary. We spent, yes, you're welcome. We spent about $76,700 on those things. We were over budget just a little bit of what we estimated, primarily because we ran into some asbestos that we didn't think was there. And we had to obviously get that removed. We were able to put new floor coverings for the chapel, the hallway, and the first floor wing. We spent about $38,000 on that. Again, we were a little over budget, but the decorating committee did a great job of picking the carpets, and I think they look great and really just dressed up the appearance of the church. We replaced the steeple, not without some fun experiences, but we did get that. We spent $264,000 replacing the steeple. We estimated about $250,000. The reason that it was a little more was that the folks that were dismantling the thing really usually guessed pretty close on what things weigh, and they thought that bottom section was going to be about 5,000 or 600,000 pounds. It was a little over 10,000. We had to bring another crane in to get it off the roof. We found out that we were missing a couple of steel pieces that we had to have fabricated and put in, and they had to mobilize twice, which cost a little bit of money, but we were over about $14,000 on what we thought it was going to be, but that steeple will be there long after I think almost all of us are gone. They did a really nice job. It looks exactly like what was there, and we're pleased with that. Some of the other projects, we resurfaced and restriped the parking lots for about $10,000. We'd actually estimated that was going to be quite a bit more, $36,000, so we were pleased with that. One of the projects that we had was replacing the windows below the sanctuary. They were really in bad shape, were a bit of a safety concern. We did not actually pay for this. The Permanent Endowment Fund came forward, those folks, and they paid for that, but that was $5,000, so we saved about $15,000 on that. Another project that we've completed is the interior painting of the Child Care Center. We had estimated about $30,000, and lo and behold, we decided that Danny and Susie decided that they could get some volunteers and Karen. And anyway, we bought the paint and other things for about $1,400 and didn't spend the $30,000, but we do have that painted, and that looks really good too. 2 other projects I want to talk a second about is, one is completing the refurbishing of the fellowship hall. we've done an awful lot in here in the last few years. Certainly looks a whole lot better than it has, but we needed new lighting, and you can tell that Gary's taken down a fair amount of the lighting. But we have signed a contract for lighting and controls for $93,870 to put in new lighting. We really underestimated what it was going to cost. We had bids as high as $140,000 for doing this work. But we've got that. We're going to have some new ceiling grid in here that's going to be donated and put in by Chris Mullins, and we appreciate that. And we're going to have some additional expenses for electrical work, and Gary is going to rebuild the booth because it's not big enough, and it's going to be moved, but over here it's actually we're going to be using a new door coming out of the kitchen, so we will have a new booth that's built. But hopefully, we'd actually wanted to get this done this summer, but that just didn't work out, and so we're going to be working in here as we go to try to get things done. But we may have a little bit of disruption. We may ask a few groups, can they use another room? But we're going to work around things as best we can and get this done. And I think we desperately need better lighting than we have in here. The last project that is underway, and I've waited on this one because this project scares me. We had $500,000 to redo the exterior of Woodyard, and that Woodyard is, as you all know, historic. It's really getting in pretty bad shape in some of the exterior of the thing, and we've had folks that have looked at that for 2 or 3 years, and how are you going to do that? Are you going to replace things, or are you going to go cover things up with aluminum? How do you want to fix the thing? So, in fact, I had one person ask me here just in the last week, what do you want when you're done? And I said, I want a facility that'll last another 35 to 50 years with minimal maintenance. And we hope we can get to that. We have got a bid in from Statesville Stained Glass to replace the large windows for $141,000, which is about what I was expecting. If there's 10 big windows plus 3 smaller ones that have to be replaced. They're they're 15 feet tall and 4 or 5 feet wide, but they will come in and replace those with something that looks exactly like it, although they'll be aluminum with both interior and exterior panes to protect them from being broken. We are working on development estimate for the repairing and replacement. There's a number of the windows in that building that are going to have to be replaced. The Woodyard Center, I think many of you know, was finished in 1926, but it was started in 1921. And so it is approaching its 100 years anniversary. And it's a beautiful building, but it has some real issues with how it was constructed, and with wood that is rotting and paint that is rotting. And of course, paint that goes back that far has got lead in it, so we always have environmental issues that we have to deal with. So that one is there, and I want to have a pretty good handle. We're still worried that we'll pull a board off or pull a piece off and find out there's damage underneath, and then you've got to go fix that too. And it's one of those projects that is very labor intensive. I think all the materials for everything in there probably be less than $100,000. But the labor it's going to take to repair and paint and fix all of that stuff is going to be expensive, and it's also, most of it's going to have to be done off of some kind of lift system or scaffolding. Now, the remaining projects that we had on the list, one is to paint the exterior of the sanctuary and office wing, and we really are going to need to do that, and hopefully we're going to have enough money to do that, but I want to get Woodyard at least pretty well along before we start that. Some of the rest of these are probably not going to get done because of the $400,000 shortfall. One is the renovation of the bathroom and the kitchens at the parsonage. One is the improvement of the security system that we've talked about for a long time, painting the main kitchen, resurfacing the gym floor in Woodyard Center. We will, I think, get most of the debt paid off. When we started this 15 months ago, our debt was at $400,000 level. It's about $250,000 now, and we've been continuing to pay that down. So I think we'll get most of that taken care of and hopefully be out of debt here in another year or so. Just to finish up, I want to, again, Buddy and Sharon are sitting over here, and their leadership and the capital campaign team for their hard work to make this happen. It was something that we desperately needed to do, and I think we're making good progress on that. Also, I see Gary sitting over here with a lot of Gary's help. These projects don't get done, and so really appreciate Gary and his folks. And finally, I want to thank each of you for your generosity in helping us keep our facilities in good shape for the future. So, again, thank you very much, and I'll turn it back to you, Mickey.
Among all those attorney faces out there this morning, it was actually good to look out there and see Mike's face, to see a safe face. I was one of the few non-lawyers. One of the few. All right. So there are three sections that Jay Mills is going to speak to. And so, Jay, if you'd come on up, he's going to do a financial review largely of the operating budget. He's going to talk about permanent endowment. You've been hearing more about that in the last year or so, and also an update on Child Care Center.
Okay, just to practice the 5 B's, be brief, brother, be brief. Here's what we have. The state of our financial affairs is very positive. Succinctly, as of July 31st, or the end of our July financials, they say things either get better or they get worse. Nothing stays the same. We have definitely gotten better at the last year. And here's some markers for you to judge and metrics for yourself. Working capital is up $23,451 from a year ago at this time. Total revenue is higher by $11,542. Our total plate and pledge that's been given to date, it recognizes an increase of $26,642. And again, like Mike said, I thank you. I thank you for partnering in God's redemptive work and his mission through this church that reaches out locally, nationally, and internationally to do these types of things. Our giving trends continue to follow patterns of pledges are going down and plate is going up, and that also recognizes a cultural shift, and it recognizes a shift in a direction that young adults tend to give. But the positive is, once again, our total is up $26,642 from a year ago. Net deficit, we are $40,553 better than we were a year ago at this point in time. Our designated accounts in 1 year, our designated accounts have increased $317,805. Our kitchen has recognized a 47% improvement in their operations financially. And again, I congratulate Linda, John, Ashley, and the work that they've done in the kitchen area. And our operating expenses. Before I even arrived and continuing to this day, our church staff does a tremendous job of being good stewards with the resources that they've been entrusted with. They continue to exceed expectations. We have cut expenses of operation by $29,012 in 1 year. I also want to make sure I pause at this moment and credit the CLC, and particularly those that are in the Facility and Finance Subcommittee, by looking closely over an extended period of time to ensure that the monies that the Holy Spirit has told you to invest, as Pastor said, into the lives of the people that are affected and influenced by this church are operating in an efficient and accountable manner, and they certainly are. Other trends, as we look at trends and analysis through the rest of the year, I see the positive numbers continuing towards this year end and also into the future. And finally, I'll mention this. It took us into the latter part of January. In fact, it was officially approved, our budget for this year, on January 27th of this past year. But tomorrow, we will have a Facility and Finance Subcommittee meeting, and we will have a first draft done by that 11:30 meeting tomorrow for us to look at for 2015. So we're well ahead of schedule in looking at operations for the future as well, too. Moving into the permanent endowment, I want to thank, first of all, the people that have been involved in this group. Tremendous group like everyone else at the church. Mike Stice chairs this group, Alex Anderson, Josie Reed, Fielding Holston, Bob Veers, Tom Brock, and Jeff Bingham have been a part of this group and have really made a significant impact in this area as well, too. And I would be remiss if I did not continue to mention and reflect the praise that everybody knows that I have for Mike McIntyre. Mike continues to step up to the plate and has done some things such as rewriting and editing our policy and procedure for the Plan Giving Committee. And I always have been and always will be indebted to Mike, and I thank Mike for everything that he continues to do for this church in every role. And I also thank him for not taking any money for doing those things too, Mike, so thank you. The purpose, as we've stated for the Plan Giving Committee and the permanent endowment, is this. It does this. It enhances our church's ability to withstand economic challenges and the changes that may come our way in the future. It provides security and the opportunity to remain strong in our faith and works. It establishes a permanent and lasting legacy as we carry out our ministries and God's work. It supports our maintenance of our facilities, scholarships, and capital improvements, such as what Mike already mentioned, the windows this past year. The TVs that you're looking at and the screens in here are were underwritten by the permanent endowment. It was a total with our wiring and cabling of about $35,000. So we're grateful for that example as well, too. And our financials, once again, are very positive in this area. We've grown tremendously in our permanent endowment. As of the end of the second quarter, our total tally is $767,549. That is a $124,000 improvement in 1 year. That is a $463,000 improvement in the last 2 years. So again, a credit goes to the church family, the body, the organism that's working together as one. The Wesley Society, you may have heard some things about this. If you haven't, I want to make sure I draw attention to it because it was created by the Plan Giving Committee this past year. And it was created to do this, to recognize individuals who have made a planned gift to the church, either through estate planning or in some other means. We had the first dinner for this group in early April this past year and had 40 people show up, and that was a gift as well, too, as it was underwritten by an anonymous donor. I want to show you that we have brochures that have been created, and I see Meredith out there, and Meredith Brown does a tremendous job just working above and beyond and helped create these types of things. And this is a brochure that's available to you, and please just contact us here at the office. But this was put together to establish our Wesley Society. And Roger Redding, who came and spoke at that event, emailed me a couple weeks ago and said another UMC church followed with a similar event following our lead. And that's the way it should be. We should be setting the pace in the things that happen throughout the district and throughout the conference and beyond as well, too. Another brochure that was put together as well, too, that's available is this: First Broad Street United Methodist Church, ask what will be your legacy. And this gives even more specifics about the Wesley Society, Plan Giving, and permanent endowment. So these are available. Please just give me a call if you like. Stop by our office and let us know, and we can get this into your hands. Third part that I had is the Child Care Center. When we met a year ago, dramatic changes started to occur. And one of the things was I shared with you how God put in my heart that this wasn't a business, this was a ministry. And we started thinking in those terms and talking about that in those terms. And we also said that it was a challenge, and we knew that it had been for quite a while, and we'd like to see it succeed. There's no guarantees even right now that we're still where we need to be, but we're certainly much better than we were a year ago at this point in time. But the thing that we talked about and that I shared was that the key thing for us is God has entrusted lives into our care, and if we want to have more lives trusted into our care, we must take care of the ones that He has already put on our path and in our journey. I really believe that we've worked hard to do that, and some of that is shown already. We initiated phase 1. A realignment, a recalibration, I like to call it. We placed it under the leadership, a system of leadership that's been proven successful for years. The DNA of our church has been talked about being missions. And so Danny and Susie, and I'm so thankful for the privilege of working alongside those two individuals, took that leadership over about a year ago. We started focusing on the expenditure standpoint, and a year later, some results have come about that have been very positive. Through the end of July, we have cut expenses when compared to July last year. We've cut $51,567 in expenses in 1 year. We project the savings just based on these expenses by year end. If we stay at that same pace, we will have saved, by the maneuvers that we spoke about at this program a year ago, we will save $88,401 in one calendar year. After the first 2 months, we actually broke even in the child care center, and I asked somebody, when's that the first time since? And somebody said maybe ever. But we had broken even after 2 months. Now, we are still in a tenuous place. I'm just telling you, we're in a tenuous place because we have done a great job of managing the expenses with regard to the child care center, but phase 2, which we started enacting a while back, has focused on the revenue side, and we still have a ways to go in this area. We have a deficit in operation like we had a year ago, but we're 52% better shape than we were a year ago at the end of July. It is a ministry. There's not a ministry, and Susie can tell me if I'm speaking out of line, there's not a ministry that we have and that we support that we make money off of. Not one. And this is something that we're not trying to make a profit. We're trying to get better at what we're doing. And this has been a key verse that has stood out for me in the past year, and I know that Danny and Susie have kind of adopted it in this area, and it's 1 Thessalonians 4:1. And it says this, "Finally then, brethren, we request and exhort you in the Lord Jesus that just as you have received from us instruction as how you ought to walk and please God, just as you actually do walk, that you should excel still more." And I think that's not just for our child care center, that's for every aspect of our individual lives and as a church, that we're actually doing this. We're doing well, but we should excel still more to our very last breath, and that's what we strive to do. We need, in order to get us past that last hurdle, we need your prayers. We need your prayers first and foremost. We need continued exposure in a positive light, and we have done some wonderful things to try to do that. Some things that were listed down. We've created some new yard signs. We put Times News child care directory ads out twice. We've been advertising on digital signage at 4 different restaurants in town here. We have used the Chamber of Commerce map. We're the only church and the only child care center that is advertised in this map, and that's for a 3-year period of time, and we've just entered the 2nd year. We've designed a new child care center brochure as well, too, which we started to distribute, and had exposure at things such as the ministry fair. The UMM, I want to thank them. They've done a wonderful job of really taking it upon themselves to have an open house and do other things like provide scholarships as well too, and we're looking to see what else we can do. That communications task force is looking at things right now to see how can we market it better. And lastly, we just need that because we need enrollment. We need numbers to be able to make it and be able to not only survive but thrive. So we encourage you to assist and partner as we do this together, because I see a lot of ambassadors here. I see a lot of ambassadors for Christ, ambassadors for this church, ambassadors for the child care center that can go out and use the circles of influence that you have to touch the people that you are in contact with momentarily or daily, and invite them into our presence and invite them into our child care center in this case as well too. I want to thank the Child Care Center Board, Rick Curry, who's been a chair of this, Sue Ann Green, and Mary Jane Alley. Fantastic, phenomenal support that they give, and this team as well too. Karen and her staff, Hannah and Josie contribute, and Hannah, in the last 2 days we've been on the phone talking as well too. So they don't meet quarterly like they used to. They meet, this board, monthly as well too. I thank everyone for their continued support in these areas, and thank you for the privilege to be working for the Lord while serving here at First Broad Street. And I thank the pastor for his support and his leadership. Thank you.
So just a couple of remaining items, and then we'll have a time for question. Other pieces that you see included in the handout are those vital signs that we have to report both to the district, and the district reports to the denomination. This year's not been a good year where average worship attendance goes, and the summer, we expect a summer slump after Mother's Day, but our slump between Mother's Day and back to school Sunday has been hard. And so that's one of the reasons that we see the dive in average worship attendance that we have there. We have been blessed since the first Sunday in August with our people coming home, and it's always good to look forward to that time and to see those responses. Total Sunday school attendance, you see that number as well. Our members received this year, I believe that 24 is reflective of last Sunday's. Our total membership is not there, but our total membership is 2,230. 2,230 is our total membership. Professions of faith for the year, we are largely driven by professions of faith from confirmation class. And so this is one of those small confirmation classes this year. Next year's, or this year, the confirmation class that started the other day, we had 24 confirmands when I was in there, so this is a big class. My daughter's fifth grade group, which would be the confirmand class of 2016, looks like it's going to be a small class again. And so if we're dependent upon confirmands for our professions of faith, so that's going to continue to be a concern for that number. But if our concern is reaching new people, and particularly new people who do not know Jesus and have never made a profession of faith, then that potentially will change professions of faith in the future. Number of baptisms, we're almost always in line with our baptisms with the number of infants that we baptize. And this next week from this Sunday, we have another twin baptism, so we get double, okay? We've done that once already this year, and another one coming up. One of the questions when we did the restructuring of the CLC was what happens to wings? And the answer was we really don't know, because we need to figure out what we need going forward into the future. And we still haven't figured that out, but we've done our first, and a word that I've learned since I've come here is straw man. We've done our first straw man of trying to look at what are our values where wings are concerned. And one of those values is lay involvement, obviously. And the other is alignment according to our strategy of loving God, growing together, and reaching out. And so we're going to give that first run at our next Wings meeting. I want to take a moment and to recognize our CLC members that are here tonight. And just a reminder, our CLC, I met some folks from another church last year who referred to their body. They called it One Board. And it does the same thing as ours. It was another large membership church, but they called it One Board. And so our One Board, which performs the functions of an executive team, our board, administrative board, and trustees, finance, and staff parish. And I would just ask each one of these to stand as I call your name. Elise Egan is our chair. Vicki Welch is our vice chair. Hannah Harvey is our lay leader. Alex Anderson is a member at large. John Perdue is, I think John is here. Meredith Humbert. Margie Nichols. I don't believe CG was able to be here tonight. Is CG here? I don't believe she was able to be here. CG McCord. I think Brad Overturf is with Sally's husband. Is that right? No, he's not on that trip. With Margie's. Oh, okay. All right. These guys fishing, I tell you. All right, so Brad Overturf is not here tonight. LZR Lemieux, I don't think, could be here tonight. He's upstairs with the youth. Josie, she was here earlier, and Daniel Wells are here, okay? And so these are our CLC members. And they have given an amazing amount of time over the last year and a little more than a year and a half. I would say to you that the level of strategizing and conversation has been the highest of any church that I have ever seen in my life. And largely that level of conversation and strategizing can take place in a smaller board where it can't take place in a larger board. And I realize that that was a bold decision, but I believe that it is a bold decision that is beginning to bear fruit for us and that will continue to bear even more fruit in the years to come. A moment ago, I began by saying, as a church, a community of faith, we exist not for ourselves. The church exists for those who aren't even here yet. That's what I said. So I want to conclude this part of my presentation with this quote, which was forwarded to me recently. It's also a challenge. To be young is to study in schools that you did not build. To be mature is to build schools in which you will not study. To be young is to sit under trees that you did not plant. To be mature is to plant trees under which you will not sit. To be young is to dance to music you did not write. To be mature is to write music to which you will not dance. To be young is to benefit from a church you did not build. To be mature is to build a church from which you will not benefit. That's the challenge. Thanks be to God for all God's amazing gifts to us. Amen. So I recognize that at this point, many of you may have children that you need to go pick up in children's ministry, youth ministry. I think we'll probably go on for a little bit. But if you have questions, we want to take a few minutes to try and answer your questions. Those of us who are up here will try and be on first. Gary has one of the microphones. Does somebody else have the other one? And Bob Bogart has the other mic. Does anyone have questions that you want to try and offer up? Anyone? Questions? This is your opportunity. All right, John Wilson.
I understand what the emphasis on young adults and young, but the demographics of people moving into Kingsport are baby boomer and older, and I know that a lot of people out here fit in that category. And as a minister of older adults, I'm concerned for a lack of emphasis on that fact and on our older adult population here at this church. Are there any plans of CLC to ever to think about that and to include, because there was no mention tonight at all of our older adults, and I was concerned about that.
Okay. Does anyone want to? I'll give it a shot, but I'll be open to any of CLC or anyone else doing it. So when you parse out the staff time that we offer, much of our hospital call and our caring call has to do with clergy visits. And so I would say to you that Nurture continues to get a very healthy percentage of our operating budget, with both the hours that John gives, and John's very part-time, as is Jack Weichel with a number of hours that he gives, and also with Joy Eastridge with a number of hours that she provides. And so on the one hand, there's still a very significant percentage of our staff budget that is being used for ministry to, I would say, 60 plus. The piece that may not have the visibility and the attention has to do with clarity for groups or support for like Forever Young. And so one of the challenges I know that even Forever Young has is as you are aging up, there's a difference in what folk are interested in and what your need for ministry is as you age up. And so I think that that's a challenge, and it is an opportunity to be clear about how we proceed to that. And you're correct. There is no piece that's been a part of that tonight. Okay.
I think we're missing an opportunity there.
Okay.
Because Move to Kingsport, a large percentage of those people are getting up to the 55.
Can you use the mic, please?
I think we're missing an opportunity there because the Move to Kingsport, a lot of people are relocating to our area. And with them, they bring resources. They want to join things such as churches. And I think there's an opportunity there for growth for our church, as well as people to volunteer, give them pledges. I do think it needs to be looked at.
On Tuesday, we were aware that the Baptists are winning.
All right.
Yes, but they're very active with it.
And so I would ask you to be mindful that reaching involves every age demographic. There's one book that I would commend to you tonight, and I should have gotten it onto the sheet. The title of the book is For a New Generation. A New Generation. The subtitle is A Practical Guide for Saving Your Church. And I would just lift this up to you. If you have concerns about your sense of our direction as a congregation, I would just ask you to take a read For a New Generation and then initiate a conversation with me or members of our CLC. And then I think that we'll approach the conversation from a clearer balance. The author is Lee Critcher, K-R-I-C-H-E-R, Lee Critcher. I actually have a few extra copies available, and I would commend that to you. Other questions? Anyone else? So, friends, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for those moments when there were things said tonight, when you just responded with what I believe was just heartfelt appreciation and applause. I want to thank all of our staff that came out tonight, because they came tonight not because they had to be here, but because they could be here and offer support and let you show them some appreciation. I appreciate them being here so much. I want to thank our CLC members for being here tonight and for all that they are doing. And so as you go forth from here tonight, we go forth to all continue to be in ministry, and we all go forth to continue to be reaching into God's future for who we are and for God's church. So go in peace, and may the peace of God go with you. And don't forget to clean up your table. Joyce is reminding me, go in peace.